life. We often think of a boundaryless life as somebody who is constantly pushing the edge or doesn't do what everybody else does. They're getting themselves into trouble, they're drinking too much, they're out there partying and having a great time. What if a boundaryless life was your favorite person who said yes to your needs all the time? So what if a boundaryless life was more like, yeah, I got that, I'll pick that up. Yeah, you're right, your work is more important than mine. Just take the time you need. Oh, of course I can drive the carpool. You need cupcakes for a birthday party today? Got it, got that. Yeah, I can finish that report for you. Or, what do you mean they're not paying their bills? Let me make that happen for them. What if a boundaryless life was more like that? To the point where the person themselves was completely unaware that every time they said yes, they were setting up somebody else to cross into their boundaries. They're exhausted, they're overwhelmed, they don't know what to do. But they're also the woman at church that says, yeah, I'll do the nursery every week. That'll work for me. I don't need to hear the sermon. So one of the things I want you to look at boundaries is failure to launch. It's an old movie with Matthew McConaughey, but it's very clear of his parents have allowed him at 35 because of an extenuating circumstance. She is still providing snacks for his 35-year-old friends, cleaning up his bathroom, his room, cooking the meals, paying the bills, taking care of him emotionally, making this safe nest. In fact, he says something like, it would take a stick of dynamite to get me out of this house. So this week we're going to talk about boundaries and boundarylessness. So there are several things that are going on with boundaries. One is not being self-aware. So you're not self-aware of your own limits. You think you can do it all. You can take care of everybody. You can make sure everything's okay. So when you're walking through the house, you're picking up your husband's shoes, your teenager's clothes, you're putting the dirty dishes in, you're making sure the house is running smoothly. Maybe that's the arrangement you had. But when they become old enough to manage that for themselves, you are creating a monster. We're all raising somebody else's husbands and wives. And if you're not allowing them to manage their own mistakes, manage their own issues, clean up after themselves, figure out what's next for them, then you are becoming boundaryless, and they are discovering that they can just take advantage. So in his great book on boundaries, Dr. Townsend talks about, and let me read it to you. Boundaries are trying to control others when really we have it backwards. So we think we're trying to control others with boundaries, especially in the addiction world. We say, oh, I need to set boundaries so I can control them. Really, it's about our self-awareness and controlling us. So think about it this way. This is Townsend's example. If I put a sprinkler out and it doesn't water my grass, it waters my son's, my husband's grass, and my grass turns brown. So the sprinkler's off there running on their grass, taking care of them. The grass is green, they can roll around in it, they can have a great time. But my grass is brown because I am living a boundaryless life. I am spending all of my time over there. So just like when we have a house, right? We have a house and we set up a fence around the house, often for the dog or the kids or somebody to play in. That boundary both keeps the kids and the dog safe, but it also keeps you safe. So it's for people, boundaries are for the out and for the in. It's for both things. Oftentimes, those of us who love the addict don't set up the boundary so the in can't come in. and we say, oh, we'll just take care of it. It's a confusion of responsibility and ownership in our lives that sets up the problem. So when I'm feeling exhausted, anxious, overwhelmed, is it because I have crossed my own boundaries? Have I walked into a situation where I shouldn't be there anymore? I'll give you a really simple example. We had a potluck at church, and one of my boundaries is not to eat the sweets at the table because then I feel like poop. I crossed my own boundary. I felt bad the rest of the day. I was angry and cranky. So that's my personal boundary. But then when somebody says, oh, can you produce this and make this for the potluck and have this all ready to go? All these things happening, and I don't check within myself, look at my time, look at what's available for me, look at what I have to offer. And there's another person we're going to start looking at, Jeff Van Vonderen, and what he says is, if you're asked to teach a Sunday school class, and you're asked to teach the junior high Sunday school class, and you really, that is not your bailiwick. In fact, you would rather not remember junior high at all, but you go ahead and do it because the pastor asked you, or the lead Sunday school teacher asked you, and you felt honored, and this is something you can do for God, but it's not what God wants you to do. You are really struggling to be there. You're not effective. You have crossed your own boundaries. This is not a place, you have become boundaryless. This is not a place for you to be. Why would I want you with my kids if this makes you cranky and mad and upset and you don't have a whole lot to offer? So yes, we have duties, we have things we need to do, but are we looking at our responsibilities? Are we looking at the ownership for our lives and what we need for our own physical, mental, and emotional well-being? So we are boundaryless when we don't distinguish our responsibility from other people's responsibility. So one of my favorite lines in Failure to Launch, and I really suggest that you watch this movie to learn about boundarylessness and what happens when they begin to set boundaries after 35 years of not setting boundaries for their son. He's a nice guy, he's a good kid, but they have not let him grow up or required him to grow up. So he goes out on a date with this woman who is helping the family set these boundaries and get him launched. And she says a faux pas of societal boundaries. She said, not only am I going to drink too much, eat dessert, which women are not supposed to do when you're out on a date. Don't order high dollar things on the menu. Don't eat dessert. Eat like a bird. Don't drink too much. She said, not only am I going to drink too much, eat dessert, I'm going to talk about my old boyfriends. She's crossing all the social mores and all the social boundaries. I'm not saying it's right, but it is funny. So you should grab that movie and take a look. It's a funny way to look at boundaries, and it's very well done as far as that part is concerned. Now, when you're looking at this, we are not taking care of ourselves. So, hey, let's talk about the tip that I really wanted to give you, that I should have said at the beginning, that was probably the most important thing as we talk about boundaries all of this week and maybe into next week. A lot of times it is because we decide that we are in this problem, we have some part in it, we are taking over responsibility for it. Just whose grades are the grades of your teenager? Now, with your elementary school students, you probably have a little more responsibility, but with your teenager, 100 years ago, my 15-year-old was an adult. He was going to work. He was getting married. He was doing all of those things. He was not this person who everybody had to help and give ribbons to and make sure he was okay. Yes, you should provide support, but whose grades are they really? I've told both my teenagers, look, I graduated from high school. I graduated from college. And again, I'm Tanya Gioia. I've been doing this work and living it for over 20 years. I hope we can talk more about boundaries. And the tip that I want to leave you with is lovingly handing the problem back to the person who needs to take ownership of it. If you are continually taking ownership of both the problems inside and outside and everybody else's, I can guarantee you are living a boundaryless life. I can also guarantee you feel overwhelmed, you feel tired, you also feel resentful. How long are you going to stay in this resentful place? So when you're looking at boundaries are not about the other person, they're about you. What boundaries are you setting and upholding for yourself? What boundaries are you saying yes and no to? And boundaries are like fences, like walls. We want to have walls. We want to have fences. As the saying goes, fences make good neighbors. This is about how do I look at myself, and we'll get into value and worth as well, but how do I look at myself? So look at today. Here's your exercise for today. Where are you being boundaryless? Where are you picking up responsibility that's not yours? Where are you also saying yes when you really need to say no? And this can be really easy to figure out. The trigger is, do I feel resentful when I have to do this? Do I feel resentful when I'm picking up my teenager's clothes? Do I feel resentful when I'm driving the carpool? Do I feel resentful when I've taken on another project for work? And really explore that. Some of it may be your job and your duty and you need to do it. But some of it may not be your responsibility and you're picking it up to keep the peace, or because you want to feel like the hero, or you want to feel like the good person. This boundaryless life is not about pushing it on other people. It's about saying, I am valuable. I need to take care of me and know where I start and you start, where I end and where you end. This is what builds healthy relationships rather than ones where I'm resentful, angry, and overwhelmed. So be sure and join us in the Sober on Purpose group. We're going to have some more special things in there. I'm going to put a link below to join us over there. We're creating a safe space, a space to talk about boundaries, what's going on, and a God-centered space where we can share what's important to us and how we are working with our families and our loved ones to create a healthy environment. Whew. Boundaries. That's what we're on this week.